St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin is named after the primary patron of Ireland, also known as Apostle of Ireland, St. Patrick. St. Patrick was a Romano-British Christian missionary who brought and spread Christianity throughout Ireland in the 5th century. The contemporary location of the cathedral originally was the place where St. Patrick baptized people into Christianity. The first reference of the church on the site was documented in the late 9th century. It is believed that some sort of church on the site existed for over 1,000 years. In 1191, Archbishop John Comyn raised the status of St. Patrick's Church to that of a cathedral. The construction of present cathedral building in terms of shape and size dates from 1220 to 1259. It was constructed on the site of an ancient well, which was supposed to have been used by St. Patrick himself. The building replaced an earlier, probably wooden church. The fabric itself was made from local limestone and imported stone from Bristol. The credit for construction of the cathedral goes to Archbishop Luke, who held the position from 1219 to 1260. Luke built a Gothic cathedral in a cruciform shape, with the main body of the church known as the nave resembling the long part of the cross, the top of the cross known as a choir, and the arms of the cross known as a transepts. It is believed that the design for St. Patrick's was based on Old Sarum Cathedral near Salisbury in England. In 1432, Cathedral Choir School was founded. The choir school still exists today and is the oldest school in Ireland. And in 1547, a grammar school was founded within the cathedral, and the choristers were enrolled in the grammar school following their education at the choir school. By the early 19th century, the cathedral had fallen into a state of complete disrepair. The cathedral we see today is much changed from the original medieval cathedral as a result of the Guinness Restoration Project, which was carried out between 1860 and 1865. The restoration was led and fully financed by Benjamin Lee Guinness. The Irish Church Act of 1869 disestablished the Church of Ireland as the state church, and St. Patrick's Cathedral became the national cathedral for the Church of Ireland. St. Patrick's Cathedral has been at the heart of Dublin and the island's history and culture for centuries. To this day, St. Patrick's is the largest cathedral and one of the most important pilgrimage sites in Ireland. Oscar Wilde is a well-known Irish wit, poet and dramatist who was born on October 16, 1854 in Dublin, Ireland. Oscar Wilde was a popular literary figure in late Victorian England. After graduating from Oxford University, he lectured as a poet, art critic, and leading proponent of the principles of aestheticism. He was a spokesman for the late 19th century aesthetic movement in England, which advocated art for art's sake. In 1891, he published The Picture of Dorian Gray, his only novel which was claimed immoral by Victorian critics, but is now considered one of his most notable works. As a dramatist, many of Wilde's plays were well received, including his satirical comedies Lady Windermere's Fan, A Woman of No Importance, An Ideal Husband, and The Importance of Being Earnest, his most famous play. Unconventional in his writing and life, Wilde's affair with a young man led to his arrest on charges of civil and criminal suits involving homosexuality in 1895. He was imprisoned for 2 years and died in poverty in Paris 3 years after his release at the age of 46. The memorial sculpture of Oscar Wilde resides in Merrion Square in Dublin, Ireland. The sculptures were unveiled in 1997 and were designed and made by Danny Osborne. One of Dublin's cultural and historical sites, Oscar Wilde's house is located at No. 1 Merrion Square. The childhood home of Oscar Wilde now houses the prestigious American College Dublin. The university offers a range of courses including performing arts and creative writing. Long before Oscar made his mark on the world, this was one of the most famous households in Dublin. Oscar's parents, William and Jane, moved here in 1855, a few months after Oscar was born. And for the preceding 2 decades, No. 1 Merrion Square was the cultural epicenter of Dublin. The Wilde children, Willie, Oscar, and Isola, experienced something of an idyllic childhood in this house and in the park opposite. They were schooled at home by two governesses, and unusually for Victorian times, they were present at many of the dinners and social events their parents held through the years. Lady Jane Wilde, Oscar's mother, was a poet, writer, and translator. For almost 2 decades, she ran a highly successful weekly salon on the first floor of No. 1 Merrion Square. Artists, musicians, poets, politicians, and philosophers would gather here to share ideas and entertain each other. Sir William Wilde, Oscar's father, was a celebrated eye and ear surgeon who was famous across Europe. A Victorian polymath, he was interested not only in medicine, but archaeology, Irish and European folk tales, statistics, topography, and travel writing. According to one commentator, as a child, Oscar heard every subject discussed and every creed defended and demolished at his parents' table, where were to be found not only the brilliant genius of Ireland, but also celebrities of Europe and America. He considers that the best of his education in boyhood was obtained from this association with his father and mother and their remarkable friends.
One of the most exciting places you can visit in Dublin is the Trinity College. Although it was originally established outside the city walls of Dublin, now it resides within the heart of Dublin city centre. It's located on College Green, across from the former Irish Houses of Parliament. It's Ireland's highest ranked university and is home to 18,000 undergraduate and postgraduate students. It was originally founded in 1592 and modelled after universities such as Oxford and Cambridge. It was originally a Protestant school, however, Catholic students were allowed to enter by the end of the 18th century, and women were first allowed to enter in 1904. Some fun facts about the school include the library. The Library of Trinity College is a legal deposit library for Ireland and the United Kingdom, and it contains over 4.5 million printed volumes of text. Also, there are secret tunnels under the school, but nobody really knows how to get to them. And another interesting thing is the Trinity Ball, which is Europe's biggest private party. If you want to visit the school, you can do so daily from the hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in groups consisting of up to 20 people. Another exciting place you can visit is the Dublin Writers' Museum. It's located close to Hugh Lane Gallery in a Georgian townhouse. The museum is quick, compact, and aims to give a crash course in Irish literature. Inside, the visitors are introduced to the most important Irish authors and historical events that shaped Irish literature and brought about masterpieces such as Dracula or Ulysses. The museum was set up in 1991 and originally proposed by journalist Maurice Gorham. It was meant to enrich Dublin's cultural scene. If you want to visit the museum, you can once again do so on the daily, and the audio tour is available in 6 languages, including English, French, Italian, Spanish, German, and Dutch. Another beautiful place you can visit is the Dublin Castle. It's in the heart of historic Dublin and is one of the most important buildings in Irish history. It's a major government complex as well as a popular tourist attraction. Inside you can find paintings, sculptures, furniture, clocks, china, glassware, prints, tapestries, and a lot more, dating all the way back to the 17th century. Outside is the Garda Memorial Garden, which is a tribute to all the police officers who lost their lives on duty. Originally, the castle was a Viking fortress, and then from 1204 until 1922 served as the headquarters of the English and then later British administration in Ireland. Of course, in 1922, following Ireland's independence, the castle was handed over to the new Irish government. If you want to visit the castle, you can do so on the daily, either on a guided tour or self-guided. There are brochures available in 17 languages.
I want to introduce to you the James Joyce statue. Let's start with who was James Joyce. He was an Irish novelist, poet, and short story writer. He published Portrait of the Artist in 1916 and caught the attention of Ezra Pound. With Ulysses, Joyce perfected his stream of consciousness style and became a literary celebrity. The explicit content of his prose brought about landmark legal decisions on obscenity. His style of writing was considered groundbreaking. The statue of the prolific Irish writer stands on North Earl Street. Joyce leans on his walking stick and appears deep in pensive thought. The statue was unveiled on Bloomsday in 1990 and was presented to Dublin City by the North Earl Street Business Association. The sculptor Marjorie Fitzgibbon created the piece from bronze. Joyce's literary work both celebrated and critiqued social and cultural life in Ireland in the early 20th century. He has long since become synonymous with the city of Dublin. People like to refer to the statue as the brick with the stick. Next, I want to introduce to you the James Joyce Tower and Museum. The James Joyce Tower and Museum is situated only 30 minutes from Dublin city centre. The tower was leased from the War Office by Joyce's university friend Oliver Gogarty, with the purpose of Hellenizing Ireland. Joyce stayed there for 6 days, from 9th to 14th September in 1904. The tower now contains a museum dedicated to Joyce and displays some of his possessions and other ephemera associated with Ulysses. The living space is set up to resemble its 1904 appearance and contains a ceramic panther to represent one scene in a dream by a resident. It is a place for pilgrimage for Joyce enthusiasts. It was purchased in the 1950s by architect Michael Scott, whose house is next door. He then donated the tower for the purpose of making it a museum. The tower became a museum opening on 16th of June 1962 through the efforts of Dublin artist John Ryan. Samuel Beckett's Bridge. The bridge is inspired by a traditional Irish harp. The harp is a true symbol of Ireland in its design, so the cables are reminiscent of the strings, and so the bridge is a mixture of symbolism and modernity. The bridge was named after Samuel Beckett for his Nobel Prize for Literature in 1969, to complement the sister bridge, James Joyce, located upstream. The bridge was opened to the public on the 10th of December 2009. Samuel Beckett produced his most important works, 4 novels, 2 dramas, a collection of short stories, essays and art criticism, during an intensely creative period in the late 1940s. Irishman Beckett had settled in France and wrote in both French and English. His experiences during World War II, insecurity, confusion, exile, hunger, deprivation, came to shape his writing. In his most famous work, the drama Waiting for Godot, he examines the most basic foundations of our lives with strikingly dark humor. The multimodal platform can rotate 90 degrees by a rotation mechanism located at the base of the tower to allow river traffic. It also includes 4 lanes for cars, 2 in each direction of travel, 2 lanes for pedestrians and cyclists, and space for future tram. It is the second signature bridge in the Irish capital after James Joyce. The designer Santiago Calatrava thought it could be a second bridge to honor the symbol of the country, the Celtic harp. He explains, I developed a deep affinity for the people of Dublin and I wanted my next bridge to hold that connection. I keep my sincere hopes that the Samuel Beckett Bridge will serve as a monument to Dublin, honoring its past, present and future. This innovative bridge joins the south bank of the River Liffey in central Dublin with the north, within the framework of a program directed to retrieve the port area known as the Springs. The central axis of the bridge is lined with Guild Street on the north side of the River Liffey and crossed the river at right angles to connect to the dock Sir John Rogerson's in a place about 70 meters west of Cardiff Lane.
When it comes to Irish cuisine, I think Slovak people will never be dissatisfied. There are just so many similarities between our cultures, but similar does not mean the same. Irish cuisine is as unique as it can be. You just have to start, for example, with soda bread. The soda bread is found in stone of everyday life in Ireland. Uh, its recipes are as old and diverse as many Irish bloodlines. And I think, in my opinion, nothing beats the golden brown, crispy, slightly dense crust that protects the tender, somewhat fluffy interior. You can find it plain with pieces of fruit or oats. At the end of the day, everyone will find a loaf which they will enjoy. Soda bread is best enjoyed with a delicious soup. Irish soups and stews are quite thick and hearty. They can include a wide array of ingredients such as potatoes, seafood, spices, and meat. A traditional Irish stew is most of the time cooked in one pot, which makes it quite simple, but for its simplicity, it packs a flavorful punch, as it is made of primarily mutton, onions, thyme, parsley, bay leaf, and potatoes, and at the end it is thickened either with roux or by simmering. Ireland might as well be a second home for everyone who loves seafood as much as I do. Irish people are superb in fish preparation. There are just so many ways to enjoy fish and seafood in Ireland. Baked fish, fish casserole, marinated or smoked, served with bread or baked potatoes, all taste great. Same goes for the shellfish and clams, especially to seafood chowder. Common types of fish are salmon, cod, trout, and char. And don't forget to wash it down with a pint of Guinness or cup of Irish coffee. The question of who founded the city of Dublin is still to this day a mystery and a hot debated question. Historians were able to gather a substantial amount of data about Viking raids and influence on earlier Ireland. It is believed that the first Viking invasion happened in year 795, and around the year 800 the Viking raids came in full motion. During this time of Irish hardship, the first full functioning town was established, which is known in modern time as Dublin. Dublin was a major trading hub from which first trading routes were established. On the other hand, it was also first place to be ransacked during the ongoing invasions. But was it really founded by Vikings? Experts are to this day split between the theory of Viking conquest and theory of Viking founding. The answers are still hidden. What is not hidden are the proofs of Viking contribution to Ireland. Founding of cities such as Waterford, Cork, Dublin, or Wexford. Establishment of trade routes, putting spotlight on medieval Ireland, as well as building Christ Church Cathedral, although it is a bit of an arguable matter. The Viking reign truly ended after centuries of retaliation in the year 1014 when Brian Boru stood victorious at the Battle of Clontarf. This period of time was followed sadly by Anglo-Norman invasions.
The famine statues in Custom House Quay in the Dublin Docklands were presented to the city of Dublin in 1997. These statues commemorate the Great Famine of the mid-19th century. During the famine, approximately 1 million people died and a million more emigrated from Ireland, causing the Iceland's population to fall by between 20 and 25%. No event in history has had a more profound effect on Ireland and the worldwide Irish community than that of the Great Irish Famine that happened in between years 1845 and 1849. The cause of famine is blamed on a potato disease commonly known as potato blight. Although blight ravaged potato crops throughout the whole Europe during the 1840s, the impact on human costs in Ireland, where one-third of the population was entirely dependent on the potato for food, was exacerbated by a host of political, social, and economic factors, which remain the subject of historical debate. The statues were designed and crafted by Dublin sculptor Rowan Gillespie.
You can find our dear Bernard Shaw almost everywhere in Ireland, from even after his death in 1950. Uh, in a form of a portrait bus in museums, to statues of Mr. Shaw in front of entrances to some galleries, or the sculptures located among restaurants and shops. But who was he to be this popular and famous? George Bernard Shaw was an Irish playwright, critic, polemicist, and political activist. He had quite the influence on Western theatre as well as on their culture and politics, if you ask me. Did you know that this guy wrote more than 60 plays? I mean, that's quite a high number, no? Few of his more major and popular works are, for example, Man and Superman, Pygmalion, or St. John. Now, those are interesting names for someone's work. Bernard here also became the leading character of his generation and was awarded a Nobel Prize in Literature in 1925. So, the style in Ireland is really similar to that one in other Western European countries and North America if we look at the usual day outwear and indoor clothes. Though Irish clothes are generally very well made and have a long history of significance attached to them.
When we think of modern Irish clothing, we often picture rich, thick, natural wool sweaters with intricate cable designs. These are Aran jumpers or sweaters, that originated in the Aran Islands of the coast of Ireland. The women of the era made the original jumpers from undyed yarn made from sheep wool called bainin. Sometimes they use wool from black sheep, but normally the sweaters are cream in color. Legend has it that the intricate cabling down the front center of the sweaters identifies the clan. Nobles and freemen alike wore a lane. The lane was a Celtic tunic that blotched at the elbow on the sleeve and was wide at the bottom, often extending beyond the knees. These were normally made of plain linen. Over the lane they wore a brett. Both men and women wore lanes, but those for women were longer. The plain garment often had decorative embroidery around the neck, lower hem, and sleeves in later years, or they might be sleeveless and plain. The shorter the lane, the lower your status in society was, probably because lower status often meant physical labor and longer lane would impede that. You will see many variations of the bread depicted in pictures of ancient Ireland, in museums and wherever you look. It was just a piece of rectangular or oval material folded many times, dropped over the shoulder, and sometimes pinned with a brooch. The early Irish used breads either as a shawl or in inclement weather, put over the head as a hood, and the shorter breads were often worn with trews, which is a type of trouser. The bread was a cloak that was fastened with a delag, which is a brooch, and the number of colors in the pattern of the bread indicated the level of importance of your person. If you were a king, you had 7 colors. If you were a druid, you had 6. Noblemen had 4 colors, and freemen had only 1. This type of clothing remained fashionable for centuries.
I'm going to be speaking about Jonathan Swift. He was an Anglo-Irish poet, satirist, essayist, and a political pamphleteer who was born in Dublin, Ireland. He spent much of his early adult life in England before returning to Dublin to serve as a dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin for the last 30 years of his life, and it is this later stage when he would write most of his greatest works that are known up until today. He's best known as the author of A Modest Proposal, Gulliver's Travels, and A Tale of a Tub. Swift is widely acknowledged as the greatest prose satirist in the history of English literature. And Swift suffered a stroke in 1742, leaving him unable to speak, and he died shortly after, just 3 years later. And he was buried at the St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, where he spent most of his later life. And you can immerse yourself in the sights and sounds of the Georgian Dublin and learn about the life of Jonathan Swift by following in his steps. And this tour always starts at the point of the entrance to Dublin Castle on Ship Street. And here we have a few memorabilia from our friend Johnny. You can always have a few of his quotations, for example on your phone. May you live every day of your life, which can seem a bit dull and obvious, but it's a great blessing to have. Also a modest proposal with a guy being pierced with a fork, or maybe even another one of his works, he was a bold man that first ate an oyster. Now going to what only the Irish could do, which I found out, was referring to someone as me old flower, and basically that's a dried up weed, which is always nice. Referring to a cupboard as a press for no real reason, only maybe because you press it. And then drinking 30 cups of tea at work only to come home for a nice solid cup of cha, which is always so refreshing. And tea is back in season. And putting ketchup on absolutely everything. Spaghetti, ketchup. Shepherd's pie, ketchup. And ice cream, ketchup. And finally, never leaving any food waste on your plate due to your inherent famine instinct. No joke, this is a real instinct. Moving on to the innovations, they build their own swimming pools from hay. So, step 1, set the scene. Step 2, lay down the plastic sheets. Step 3, add water. And step 4, which doesn't need to be added, have fun. Lastly, something a little extra only an Irishman would do. Oh, when I see a pot of gold, yeah man, I think of the butter that we have in Ireland, which is Kerrygold, which is just pure Irish, and it looks like a golden bar that was pulled out of the pot of gold. Oh, and Kerrygold I always have with a potato sambo, and the sambo must always be with barnbrack, because there's nothing else I would eat. But now, I can't be arsed, so that's the end of my part.